Well, just as Leanne read a few words from Torah earlier, so I'd like to share a couple of words. Seems I have time. Everybody, last night it was really nice. There were a couple of people and they had to go early. And so I said, well, I understand if you walk out on the sermon, everyone else does, if you're Jewish. And they actually stayed. It was really very nice. But, there's a sermon, this is really the first time I've done High Holidays, and there's a sermon I've been dying to give for 15 years. Just, let me get into rabbinical school or a program or whatever it was I ended up doing, finish, get ordained, and I'm going to give this sermon. And I'm going to tell you what it was, and I'm going to tell you why I'm not going to give exactly that sermon here today. And I'll tell you kind of what I do have planned for our community of healing here at UCSF Medical Center. So I have been dying to say in front of a congregation, and I'll say it, and it's going to be good, that we always have kind of an excess of. We have more people than seats on the High Holidays, and most congregations are just overflowing. Many of them resort to having tickets, which I sort of wish we wouldn't do. But you have an early service and a late service because not everybody can fit in the space. And so I say from the pulpit, it would be great if everybody would come to the other holidays of the year. And so here's what I've been dying to tell them is next year kind of skip the High Holidays and come on a different holiday. If you're only going to come once a year, pick like Sukkot, which is in 14 days, and for a couple of reasons. And it's not because there's anything wrong with Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. There's nothing wrong with the High Holidays. It's not that that's a big business. That's not what this is about. It's just that I worry that if people only come to services on the High Holidays, they're going to think Judaism is about sin. And the High Holidays are very much about sin and repentance and the idea that, punishment and mercy and all of this stuff. But Judaism has a lot more to say than that. Each of our holidays, over the round course of the year, has its own theme. So Sukkot, for example, is a harvest festival. Its theme is happiness. It's the season of our happiness. In ancient times, in the Talmud, Sukkot was the big holiday, where everybody came to the temple. It was a pilgrimage festival. Everybody came to the temple with their fruits. You may know there are 3 pilgrimage festivals. Sukkot was the big one. And when the Talmud says Hag, meaning holiday, it means Sukkot. They don't even need to say what it is. It's the big holiday. And it goes on at length about the great party there was, and jugglers entertaining the people in the middle of the night by torchlight, and how the square looked, and that was the big deal. And you had to become pure in order to participate in the ceremony at the temple. And so we had the, Yom Kippur to purify people before Sukkot, right? But it used to be kind of, every holiday is important in its own right, but it used to be sort of a preparation for the big Chag, the big celebration. And today, I think for very good, understandable reasons, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur have become the big holidays of Judaism. But the danger is that we're going to forget the happiness and remember the sin and repentance piece, which, though important, is also kind of where our majority Christian culture puts us in Judaism, because that narrative that Judaism is about the stern God of law who punishes you, and whatever you're suffering, it's because of a punishment, etc. It sort of serves the Christian story to think of Judaism in that way. And I don't begrudge my Christian friends their story. It's a great story. It's really a wonderful story. And one of the messages I have for kind of my friends who are Christian is that the Judaism that exists, that we practice here, is not actually the Judaism in the story. And people are like, oh, well, that's really enlightening, because people will ask me if we do sacrifices, and they will, and no, we don't. So the Jewish religion today is very, very different from that biblical religion. And the biblical religion was not a religion about sin and repentance either. It had its own rhythm. And because our majority culture kind of places us in the box of Judaism being about a stern God who punishes, it becomes even more essential that next year, kind of, if you're only going to go to one service, go to a different one and experience a different facet of Judaism. Because, you know, again, our holidays have themes. Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur especially, is very, very much about sin and punishment. The Jewish religion's about a lot more. Okay, so that was what I was going to say, and I just said it. I was going to go on, because you know how holiday sermons kind of go on. And so I would have had, you know, a tidbit here and a tidbit there and a quotation from this person. Well, you don't need it. It's okay. You get my point. My concern, though, is that for a healing community, we need to say a little bit more. Because we need to go a little deeper in a hospital setting here into that question of sin and punishment. Because I don't want anybody to think that they're here in the hospital because they have sinned. That is not the cause and effect that we believe in, that I believe in. I certainly do not. I do not believe that everything happens for a reason. I do not believe that the difficulties we undergo are always explicable by our own fault. That's not what I believe. Sometimes they are. And one of the benefits of having a holiday that encourages us to kind of look back on our year and reflect is to say, to what extent have my decisions placed me in this situation which I prefer not to be in? And to what extent have they not? And Judaism has always been about kind of being in a conversation with God. And, you know, sometimes we need to stand up for ourselves. We need to say, hey, this isn't fair. You know, that's very religious. That's very, very Jewish to be in community with God and to say, you know what, I'm angry at you. You know, I once had a conversation with somebody who was angry. God hadn't delivered. You know, the prayers weren't answered. And I said, one of the things I said was, do you believe that anger is permissible within a relationship of love? Can you love somebody and be angry at them? Is anger okay when you love somebody? Yeah. You know, anger's okay in a relationship of love. And just as that's true between two people who love each other, you know, here in San Francisco or in the Bay Area right here on Earth, so it's true of our relationship with God. And there are times when we feel angry. It's like, you know, why in the world am I suffering here? I didn't do anything wrong. Okay? That's part of reflection too. And coming to that conclusion is also an outcome of spiritual reflection on our deeds and our misdeeds. Sometimes we say, gosh, you know, I could have been more careful. Other times we say, you know what, no. I don't feel like I did anything particularly wrong here, and I'm ready to stand before God and say that. And sometimes it's kind of a combination of the two. So I don't want anybody here in the hospital to get the message from our liturgy that we are saying that everything that we undergo is punishment for what we've done before. Certainly everything that happens stands upon what came before it. That is certainly true in our world. More or less. We're going to leave chaos theory and everything aside for the moment. But, you know, things that happen are founded upon things that happened before. But it isn't always the case that our faults cause them. Sometimes other people's faults cause them, and sometimes we just have to kind of accept that we are imperfect, and we are mortal, and our mortality, as well as our morality, place limits on what we can control. And that itself can be a hard truth, but it is the truth. And I think it's a comforting truth when we kind of come to terms with it. We just simply don't control all of this. And so the challenge is really to ponder and to reflect on the extent to which what we experience is under our control. to try to make that better, and to accept that which is not under our control. All of that, I think, is part of the outcome of spiritual reflection on the year that's gone by. So the bottom line is that we are remembered, we are loved, we are part of a community of love. And whether we're suffering, whether we're feeling just great, whether we're tired and feeling overworked, whether we are in pain, whether we're really thinking very immediately about our own mortality, whether we're looking at birth. We are part of a community of love. I believe it is a community of the earth and of our ecosystem that is good. One thing Judaism teaches us, we say, Hayom Harat Olam, this is the birthday of the world. If you look back to the creation, God says it's good. It's good. It's more good than bad. Whoever has their good deeds outweigh their mistakes is called a good person, says the Talmud. Whoever has their mistakes outweigh their good deeds is called, well, they need help. So our relationship can be with God. And if we don't give up, and if we keep sort of our faith that we can always make beauty out of what has come before, and we can find a way with the material that we're given to make it into something beautiful, so we will be actively participating in the community of love that in any case we find ourselves in. So thank you very much. That's really the message that I hope people will take from our liturgy today.